Video games have tried a lot of silly things to enhance shooters over the years. Some, like Nintendo's Humble Rumble Pack and the haptic feedback in controllers it would inspire, have stood the test of time. And others, like this, not so much. Let's jump into some of the silliest ideas video games have tried that just didn't quite work out in their own time. Hit that subscribe button, give us the old thumbs up, let's get to it. If you were around in the late 1900s, specifically 1992, you probably watched Lawnmower Man or read the book Snow Crash, and you were sold that all your video games and possibly your entire life would become part of virtual reality very soon. This was 100% the way of the future, and to sell that point home, malls all over the country set up these kiosks where you could put on this massive headset and play Dactyl Nightmare. It was a very simple PvP arena shooter where you walked around lobbing projectiles at other players, teleporting around the map, and trying not to get yeeted off a map by a dinosaur. It's not that VR was a bad idea in the 90s, it's just that we all thought these things would be in our lives at that time. And that was laughable because the tech wasn't nearly small enough or affordable enough for that to happen for something like 30 more years. The cost was way too high, and computers weren't nearly strong enough to bring that technology home. Seriously, at that time, computers looked like this. It just wasn't going to work then. And to be honest, VR's still in pretty early stages now. We all used to have CRT televisions that were ridiculously heavy and tough to move around, and apparently had a high voltage capacitor inside that could kill you if you took it apart, even when it was unplugged. But it was totally worth all the hassle to play light gun games. There were some great ones like Duck Hunt, a launch game for NES in 1985, and my absolute favorite, Time Crisis. Then one day I remember walking into a Best Buy and seeing my first flat screen TV. It looked like some kind of space magic and cost about as much as space magic would, at something like $10,000. I had no idea what I was really looking at was the end of light gun games at home. As people bought these TVs, accessories like the NES Zapper and gun cons for PS2 simply stopped working. So it turns out CRT televisions allow for more precise measurement of where a light gun was pointing at the screen. The details are a bit complicated, so I'll link some videos below. Light gun games didn't instantly give up and disappear, it was more of a slow death. And it wasn't for developers' lack of trying to keep them alive. Consoles like the Wii, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3 all tried to carry on using a sensor bar that was placed on top or just below a television. But the way it behaved was more like dragging a cursor around your television screen. It was never very precise or satisfying. The lengths that consoles continued after that to experiment in order to track your aim led to some even funnier inventions, like the PS3's rave stick-looking PlayStation Move controller that you could use with Killzone 3. Now, according to one Linus Tech Tips, that technology may have just finally caught up to flat-screen televisions, so light gun games could make a return. Oh boy, the Kinect for Xbox 360 and Xbox One. I need to start off by saying I'm probably one of the few people who loves, present tense, Kinect, and I still use it to this day for exercise games. It was there for me with hand gestures and voice commands when I was elbow deep in my kids' diapers and couldn't exactly touch things. And a huge source of relief early in the pandemic when we couldn't leave the house but still needed outlets for movement. Kinect tried a lot of things, and I love that developers were really grappling with the technology. It was great for all kinds of things like dancing, but boy did it not work out for shooters for technical and also kind of creepy reasons. On the technical side, when it comes to shooters, the Kinect just doesn't work. It was one thing in the past to be holding a fake toy gun, but now you were standing there with nothing in your hands, just completely imagining a weapon or something. Sometimes you even had to pretend you were a weapon. It was just really goofy for all parties involved. The most memorable attempt was Ghost Recon Future Soldier using Kinect to aim and shoot weapons, as well as navigate their gunsmith. You had to take this kind of awkward horse stance, aim with a fist, and then quickly open and close your hand on the screen to fire it. To be fair, this did lead to a pretty great trailer with Coco, Ice-T's special someone, who awkwardly showed off this mechanic and generally looked like she could kill a man, so I'll probably stop talking now. There were some other creative attempts that sort of worked, like Gunstringer, where you control the marionette and use your fingers to shoot. My kids had a pretty hard time with the hand-eye coordination for that one, because the game was legit hard. Other than that, there were some hunting games and Blackwater. Oh boy. So remember how people with tinfoil hats always say the government's watching you? Like they have eyes everywhere? Well, Microsoft came out with an always-on living room camera with the Kinect around the time it came out that the NSA was actually collecting data and watching pretty much all Americans, like Granny on down. That royally creeped people out, and they did not want a camera with a microphone staring at them in their living room all the time, especially when they might be playing games like Mass Effect 3 and screaming, "Hey, shoot that guy!" It's interesting because iPhones were becoming popular around the same time, and nowadays people carry around cell phones all the time or have Alexa in their home listening to them, and both of those are far more powerful at surveillance. Voice commands in a tactical Navy SEAL inspired game made a ton of sense on paper, but my roommates at school probably thought I was nuts sitting in my room screaming tactical commands at my TV like breach, bang, clear. SOCOM US Navy SEALs came with a mostly functional mic and headset that you could use to talk to your AI teammates, but you couldn't just say whatever you wanted. You had to follow a specific line of commands that your squad mates could understand, and that didn't exactly flow naturally or work under pressure, particularly in an unforgiving milsim game. The voice commands could be really frustrating. I lost track of the number of times AI teammates would do unexpected things like listen to me intently and then run over to a live grenade on the ground like a golden retriever, or throw a flashbang right into a door frame and back into our team. It was hard to remember how to tell your team to get away from dangerous spots when all you wanted to scream was get the hell away from there. Even though voice commands didn't really work well, the general idea again was ahead of its time, and probably was about as good as early text-to-speech software. Think of how many devices you talk to now. I mean, this one could come back in future games. It could be really interesting to have much more natural conversations with your AI squad mates, assuming the other people in your real life don't mind you screaming at televisions. One of the hands down best inventions in all of games is a controller rumbler, a dead simple haptic device inside of your controller that vibrates and gives you feedback through your hands. So it makes sense that some developers wanted to try to apply this rumbling sensation to other parts of your body. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. For starters, a lot of them aren't taking input from the games themselves, but just listening to sound and responding to the audio input. The feedback from getting hit basically seems to boil down to a locational massage. And in one case, a reviewer tried a touching simulator, which got really awkward.
Really weird. Okay, can you get off me? Alright, can you stop touching down there, please? Can you stop? You need to learn boundaries.
If you're using add-ons like head attachments, then when you play a game, you're basically getting kicked in the head. And the entire point of games, particularly shooters, is to take the fun and stimulating parts of the combat and leave behind the traumatic parts, like pain. To be fair, some reviewers seem to like the butt-focused haptic feedback in things like racing games that let you feel the engine, rumble strips, and anti-lock brakes, but you're basically just sitting on a bass speaker at that point, so maybe just scoot your bass speaker on a little closer first and try that. Haptic gloves, on the other hand, are pretty cool. I tried out the White Falcon haptic controller at CES many years ago, and I could genuinely feel the different textures of digital objects. But this technology has not caught on to mainstream gaming, and at the same time, the humble Rumble controller keeps just getting more and more advanced. See the PS5 DualSense. Honestly, if you play with a haptic vest, I would love to know more, and please tell me what you think below. What wacky things do you remember shooters trying over the years that didn't work or were just too far ahead of their time? We have a bunch more shooter-focused list videos coming soon, so head on over to GameSpot's YouTube page to check out 8 great sniping games you can play now. Thanks for watching.